Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you attending and participating in this. The recording will be available afterwards if you want to share this with more of your colleagues. So when we think about, the world today, of course, it doesn't take much to look around and realize how challenging it is. The types of operations that we're dealing with are much more complex. We have new kinds of adversaries. In our militaries, people are being deployed to support a variety of different missions, not just traditional combat roles, but a variety of different missions, and look at information about adversaries, about operations in many different ways. And we need to be flexible to be able to support that. In addition to that, our world is really undergoing this massive digital transformation. More and more information is being collected from sensors and other devices. It's digital data that we can use to understand and analyze the environment around us. And what we like to think of as how to handle that is what we call the science of where, which is really about taking the science of geography and the technology of GIS in order to understand our world better, to be able to manage information, understand it better, and provide this kind of fundamental digital language, which helps us bring all this information together and bring the context in place. Location mapping and GIS are becoming essential. So we really see this as a fundamental language for understanding our world. And the reason for that and why it fits so well into these tactical operations is this idea that maps and a location can provide content and context for everything. All activity happens at a place and a time. We can integrate information using space and time as an integrating framework. And the science of where really provides a framework for integrating information, but it also helps us understand a process. And you're going to see this process unfold directly in the demonstrations. We start off by using GIS as a way to integrate data, to manage our information. And we typically do that so we can visualize it on a map. So we can see the data, we can understand it in a visual context, and we can understand its relationships to each other. But of course, we don't just stop there. What we really want to do is go beyond what we can see with our eyeballs and actually use analytic tools to do modeling. So we can do prediction of what might happen in the future, so we can understand the impact of our activities. And then we work together to do planning and collaborative design. We plan future operations, we measure their effects, and we make decisions about what might the most effective operation be. And then we actually take action and communicate with each other during that action. And then really you can think about that as kind of forming that cycle. The data we collect when we're taking action feeds back into this process, and we can use it to refine and adjust our priorities as we move forward. And of course, GIS is advancing rapidly. We're seeing new influxes of new kinds of data, from drones to sensor data. We're leveraging new computing infrastructure, the cloud and web services, using new capabilities like machine learning and deep learning in order to understand our data. And all of this is coming available through new kinds of applications with new tools and capabilities for analytics and data sharing and compilation. And you're going to see a lot of these new applications and new uses of technology today in the presentations. One of the things that we like to really think about that this new world of advancement has really created is a way to connect everybody with GIS. Traditionally, GIS was relegated to the realm of professionals, but now we have applications and capabilities that anybody in an organization can access data on any device at any time. This lets you connect people into your operations that you may not have been able to do traditionally. They can use simple devices and simple apps in order to collect information, share data with each other, and they can do that in real time. And the expectation is really becoming that everybody wants access to the best maps and the best data anywhere at any time in your organization. And we can use GIS and GIS tools in order to enable that, along with new focused applications. So part of why we're talking about this and why we're moving this Tactical Operations Center presentation connecting it to our intelligence series is that we really see the role of GIS can be to help integrate intelligence and operations. So in addition to doing the analysis in order to prepare, intelligence preparation of the battle space or to provide assessments or reports, we really want to connect our operational forces to our intelligence process. And in many ways, we want to share intelligence with them, but we also want to use our field operational forces as digital sensors. Every soldier is a sensor kind of concepts. Have them collecting data and feeding back into us, so that way we can actually have these intelligence operations. We can conduct operations, but we can also use that data and that information to affect intelligence, which can help us do better planning and decision making. And all of that comes together in this GIS pattern, leveraging the applications that come as part of the portal, which is a core part of this GIS pattern. And it enables these applications and integration. It exposes our backend services of data and analytic services, and it gives us an environment to do collaboration across many different fields. So with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to Joe, who's going to step us through some backgrounds on what we mean when we talk about operation centers and tactical operation centers, and also showing us the actual technology we use to integrate this information together. With that, turn it over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Ben. So before we get started, I want to connect to Ben's introduction and kind of show you a quick example of what he's talking about. Let me just grab my screen here. Let me know if that doesn't come up. But as an operations officer or a commander in an operations center, I want to do more than just see what's going on. I want to have all of the useful information I need for situational awareness and decision making at my fingertips. Whether you're in the field or in an established operations center, there will always be some sort of wall display or a screen, and this operations dashboard is a small example of that. Here we have different feeds and data sets updating automatically and providing the so what. You know, the analysis that helps commanders make decisions. It's in a browser so that commander can seamlessly transition to and from a mobile device and just keep going with that same situational awareness. So really quickly, let's talk about the specific solution and how it folds into operations centers in general. So asking a high-level question like, what is an operations center, always drives me back to doctrine, because the answer in reality can vary pretty wildly, from some tent in the middle of nowhere to a state-of-the-art national level center and everything in between. And in preparing for this project, it was important to focus the team on what kind of organization we were really developing the situation for. Now, in a civil military operations center or a CMOC, there is a lot of concurrent effort. Everyone's hustling to accomplish several different things. Sections and cells are planning future operations, monitoring current operations, sourcing equipment, coordinating resources, managing partnerships, organizing the staff. The list goes on. And in our discussions with civil affairs units and their staff members, they really wanted a solution for 3 workflows. And that is to build and disseminate mission plans for the civil affairs engagements themselves, conduct surveys and track their answers, manage requests for information or RFIs, and visualize all that content along with other information on a common operational picture. Too easy, right? These are all common workflows to a civil affairs community, but there are systemic problems, mainly the amount of content that is generated and the lack of a solid distribution method. A team can do a myriad of engagements, collecting hundreds of surveys, all in paper form. And those resulting reams of paper would then need to be collated, consolidated, analyzed, and then that analysis disseminated to higher echelons and incorporated into follow-on plans. Now, those plans are usually drawn on an acetate sheet or in a form factor that's not easily shared with the rest of the team. RFIs are printed out and then shoved into pockets and binders, the tracking of which can easily break at a shift change. So members of our team brainstormed with these organizations and boiled it all down into some challenge statements and mocked something up together. We wanted to increase speed and accuracy of collection, allow for accurate real-time analysis of quantitative data, and improve the tracking capability for that information. So they brought that back to Redlands, and we set out to create a repeatable solution to share with the rest of the community. Those 3 or 4 workflows we talked about before roughly translate to 3 separate personas, 3 sets of users that interact with the system in different ways or from different points of view. Field users want a simple, portable interface. The operations folks want to be able to manipulate their data however they want, and command teams or decision makers just want an easy way to see it all. So we worked on a punch list of apps to solve every use case, and then we prioritize them. And here that prioritized list is broken out by persona and or use case. The orange items are the ones that we've already built, and gray items are ones that we've planned for the future. So we're getting close to the demo, but first I want to take this opportunity to explain some of this to you a little bit more. Here's that same list of apps broken out by type. We have forms, web apps, and a dashboard. And I'll show you in just a second how you can download all the information you need to get started at that link underneath the title. So instead of filling out whole pallets of paper with every conceivable misspelling, bad grammar, whatever other mistakes we can possibly come up with, we can reduce those issues by automating and digitizing at the point of entry, the point of data entry. I can use a Survey 123 form on a phone, tablet, laptop, or in any browser. I can use a simple web interface to create a simple form or take advantage of Microsoft Excel to create smart forms. I can then share that data as a service for the rest of the ArcGIS Enterprise to use to either visualize it like Operations Dashboard or manipulate it further like in Web App Builder. These lightweight apps are for building plans and managing data in a map. You can quickly configure and host applications targeted at specific workflows or create a template app to use with different maps. Just like Survey 123 is inputting data to those services, Web App Builder is reading and editing the data in those services even further. Now, to maintain a real-time picture with some polished analytics from the same services, we use Operations Dashboard. And the widgets here are developed specifically to visualize and interact with the information and combine that with a real-time view of the map for full situational awareness. All right, so now let's get to the demo. So this is the ArcGIS Solutions website where we showcase all of our maps, apps, and platform configurations by industry. We provide all of our documentation here, and for our defense users, we include a PDF with our solutions for offline use. You can browse to your industry, or you can just click here to go straight to defense. And from there, you can look at it in either a gallery form and see all of our solutions here, or you can go to the documentation page and just see a list of the release solutions. From there, you can select civil military operations. And here on the home page, we have some general information. And then we break out the rest of the documentation into 3 separate tabs generally. Get started, you can think of that as a 0 to 60, right? Getting you from installation to ready to use your solution. Workflows kind of walks you through the general use of the solution. And then the resources tab gives you any additional information that we found useful for you. You might see release notes or references or anything like that. The most important thing you need to get started here is that download button. And that download button is going to provide you with a zip file that contains everything you need to get started. So once I've downloaded and installed everything, the best way to get started is through my portal or my ArcGIS Online organization. And so here, we've created a simple app gallery that contains everything you need regardless of who you are in the civil affairs community. So as we mentioned before, you can use Survey 123 either on a computer or a device, in a browser or an app. And I think a really cool way to get started here for Survey 123 is you see here either using the web designer or 123 Connect, right? So here you're going to drag in a couple of questions, fill out some information, and very quickly get started. It's great for simple surveys. But if you want to include some of the more enhanced functionality, then you're going to want to go through Excel. So we've made one here for a request for information. As a member of an operations cell, I can use the RFI form straight from my computer. Just click on the link and get started. I've already filled one out, so you guys don't have to watch me fill it out here, but we can walk through it, right? So I've got a subject, need to follow all my naming conventions. Provided more of a detailed example of why I need this, right? So I need the updated imagery for the next information. This is an important one, right? Suspense date and time. If they don't get me that imagery by 9:30 tonight, then they're they're not helping me out, right? They're not accomplishing my mission. So we've got a justification, we've classified the request, and then we've got a submission time, so 18 minutes late. And then I can select my location, right? So Survey 123 works with point data, so I can elaborate and say I want the imagery for all of California State University, Monterey Bay, but drag exactly on where I need it, right? Or I can just paste in an MGRS grid and it'll go right to it. You can also use some of these other coordinate notation formats. And then the requester information, right? My unit, my section, my name, my contact information. And then here we've set it up so that you can select whichever product types and delivery mechanisms you want. And then I can just hit submit. Too easy, right? Conversely, as a member of a civil affairs team, I can use the app with all of my forms, either online or offline. And once I've logged in, I can see all the forms that I have at my disposal. The number 2 right there over Atmospheres questionnaire means that I have 2 of them that I've already completed while I was offline, and I can either submit them now and just hit send, or I can start collecting data. I've actually filled one out already for the population assessment questionnaire, but we can walk through that as well, right? So definitely on the A team, and it auto-populates my interview date and time. And then we just fill in everything else, right? Mr. Interpreter, my name, the interviewee, their age, and who they are in the community. And then we can get into the meat of the interview, right? You see here, so I've already filled this out. As we click through, you see if I say other, right, it's automatically going to give me the option, but it doesn't bother me with a bunch of blank forms that are a bunch of blank areas that I don't need to fill out. So you see here, we've gone through and asked about, what are the causes of community population changes, what are the threats, and all these are drop downs that we can then just select very easily, right? We've got short answer, we've got all sorts of different answer types or question types. So we've got some closeout comments. No, nothing additional needs to be said, and here's the survey location. So we can ping it to our location, and there it's found us in Redlands, or we can click on the map, and then we have the same functionality before, right? We can zoom out and then move this back over to where we are. Check my location and then click the check. We can send now, send later, or continue the survey. So now that we've gone over the data entry workflow a little bit, Dan is going to show you what we can do with that information. Dan?
Thanks, Joe. So here we go. So let me know if you guys can't see the app gallery that we have here. But now that Joe has shown you guys how to collect information with the Survey 123 forms in the field, I'm going to go ahead and talk a bit about using the various apps that we have to plan the civil military operation, manage that data that's coming in, and view the common operating picture in a dashboard. So to start, I'll open up our Civil Military Operation Planner application. This application was built in Web App Builder, which is our configurable app building software. You can see that I have a variety of features on the map, and that's basically the point of this app. It's to simply sketch features that outline the plan of your civil military operation. If I click on this left-hand tab here, you'll see that I have a variety of feature templates that I can add to the map. We have points for 2 types of operations, engagement and reconnaissance, or maybe both. We have areas that you can add for your AOI, whether it's a normal priority or high priority. And then what I focused on here in this particular map over downtown Monterey is the mission execution plan routes, areas, and particular locations. So you can see that we have a primary route outlined in blue that goes through downtown Monterey. And we also have a variety of mission execution plan areas. You can see that we have an area that we've sketched out for our team to avoid when they're conducting this operation. And finally, you can see that we have a variety of mission execution plan locations. These are just points symbolized on the map, and they mean anything from the start point and end point of our route to a variety of survey locations, event locations, and so on. So it's a pretty detailed way to plan out your mission. And what I can do here is I can add a survey location. And you'll see that once I add a survey location to the map, I can add a variety of different attributes that are associated with the point. So the location name, a start and end time for when you'd be conducting the survey, a team member that's leading this, the number of people on the team that are conducting surveys, and then even details such as duration and cost. So you can actually add budgeting into your mission execution plan. So I'll go back and move on to our next application, which is going to talk, basically the point of the next application is our Civil Military Operations Manager. It's bringing in data that was collected in the field. So now that you've planned out your application, this next application that I'm showing is how you integrate data collected in the field and manage and assess it for quality. So if I click on the Smart Editor widget again, you'll see now I have features that are representative of entries for the various forms, the atmospherics questionnaire, the population assessment, and then the request for information as well. So you can see that in our atmospherics questionnaire, we have these new features that you can add onto the map. But we don't need to do that because the forms, as they're filled out, already populate these feature services. And you can see that we have a variety of both black and blue atmospherics questionnaire responses over our area of interest on the map. So what I'll do is click on a particular location, and you can see that this dot on the map is a atmospherics questionnaire entry. And then you can see here in the Smart Editor that it is the same information that people filled out when we were in Survey 123. So the questions, for example, what town do you live in, giving an age range for the interviewee, what is your most reliable source of information, the most pressing issue that your future government should be concerned with, the strongest security partner question. So all the commonly used questions in an atmospherics questionnaire. And then finally, the meat of this application is this status dropdown. And the status dropdown is sort of a for office use only dropdown that you can use to move these points forward in the quality assurance process. So they all start out as received, as the information is coming in. And what you can do is you can verify the information, make sure that everything looks correct and looks complete, and then you can move it to verified. If it doesn't look good, you can move it to rejected. So I'll move this point from received to verified, click save, and then I'll click back to get out of the Smart Editor widget. And you can see now that my point has moved from black to blue. So now it is a verified atmospherics point that we can then bring into other applications, including the dashboard. The last thing I'll show with this application is that you can use the filter widget to actually filter out any atmospherics questionnaire or other data that you have already checked. So these are just showcasing now on the map, filtered for atmospherics questionnaires that are received but not verified. So this is the work that we would have left to do. Now I will move on to show the Civil Military Operations dashboard. This is the dashboard that Joe showcased at the very beginning of this demonstration. It is the common operating picture where everyone in the operations center can see the operation as it unfolds and see the data being populated into the map. Not only do you see the data being populated in the map, but you can also gain insight on the data that's being collected because we have these widgets here on the left-hand side. These charts and graphs can help us visualize the responses that we're getting in the field. For example, the strongest security partner question, which is part of the atmospherics questionnaire, you can see that the majority of respondents selected that Monterey County in this scenario is their strongest security partner. Down here at the bottom left, you can see that our most reliable information source for our respondents so far is about a tie between newspaper and radio. You can pan over and see that we actually have more operations based on our geographic area, and also a request for information status. Something important to note here is that you can see we have one RFI that's in process, 3 that are received, and then we actually have a segment here that's null. So this is why the app that I showed you before is important, the Civil Military Operations Manager, so that you can go through and make sure all of your data is accurate and complete. That way, you can avoid data, null data, or just fuzzy data coming into your operations dashboard. So all of these elements, all these applications and dashboards that I showed, they're configurable. They're specific to our solution for civil military operations, but they're also a good use case that can show you how you can implement the ArcGIS platform to run any type of operations center. So before I hand it back over to Ben, I will take a moment to note that this is just one of many solutions that the Defense Solutions team puts out. All of our solutions are documented on the website that Joe showcased. They're also supported and maintained, which means that if you run into an issue, you can call Esri Tech Support and they will help you out with it. And then they're also open source, which means that all of our code and all the work that we do is primarily on GitHub. So you can interact with us and give us feedback there as well. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Ben.
All right, thanks a lot, Dan. That was good. Really appreciate you guys showing that those examples. And I do think it's important to note, as Dan was mentioning at the end there, that the civil affairs aspect of this is an example, and it's a really good example. I mean, I know lots of people struggle with how to integrate civil affairs information into their operations. So I think it's a great example. But as saying, it is a good example. So even if you're not looking at civil affairs operations, you might be looking at other data that's being collected in the field. Maybe it's EOD reporting you want to integrate into your operational workflow. Maybe you want to work with different groups who are doing reconstruction efforts in or anything like that. So the key is that these solutions are flexible. You can actually configure them yourself for your own specific information needs, but following the same pattern of using these field collection applications, using the portal to serve up these data and maps and application configurations, and then actually integrating that information back in your operations center through the use of operations dashboard. So that pattern's really good, and I recommend taking a look at the solution to see how the pattern is implemented, and also to just look very specifically at the data model and how they specifically integrated information about civil military operations. So to kind of bring this all back together, we see the platform is really being this integration environment for information for intelligence and operations. It definitely provides that system of record for authoritative maps and data. It provides us a system for analyzing and gaining insight in our applications. And it provides us access to applications for engaging different people in our organization. And so you just saw today a variety of those applications. They can be web applications, they can be mobile applications for collecting data and sharing information out, and ultimately connecting to the actual analysts and operators that are actually doing the work in the organization. And we're doing that through these focused applications. And there's a variety of applications you can use for many different purposes, from planning and collecting information, which is a lot of what we saw today, to exploiting and analyzing data, which we've seen in some of the other webinars we've done in the series, and then also for producing and disseminating data out, so in the form of story maps or reports. And these focused apps are really crucial and pretty simple in terms of their usage, but they're easy to build. So they're configurable for collecting and reporting data. They can be browser-based or mobile apps that run on your devices. They're easily configured. They can have a variety of tools that you embed in them, and they basically support your own workflow. So you can go beyond just the specific use case that was developed for the solution and use it for any other data collection or reporting operations. So with that, we're coming to the end of the session. So thank you for attending. At this point, if you have any questions for the team, if you could please enter them in the question and answer module. We'll ask them of the team. We have plenty of time here to answer your questions. If you want to stay engaged with us outside of this webinar, you can visit our Defense and Intelligence community on GeoNet. You can ask questions there, and we can actually continue the dialogue outside of the webinar. And as we've already mentioned before, to look at this solution and along with all the other solutions we have for defense, just visit solutions.arcgis.com/defense. And then our next webinar will be on the same topic, but we'll be digging into the how-to. So I mentioned the idea that you could configure these applications yourself for your own purpose. And on the next webinar, you'll see how we specifically configure the field operations aspect of these applications. So digging into the technical how-to behind what you've seen today. And with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ben. We do have questions coming through. Thank you guys so much for writing those in. We have one here that says, is there a CyberNet or JWix gallery?
So I can take that question. So on both CyberNet and JWix, there's a resource that's known as the ICGIS portal, which is hosted by NGA. These applications that we've seen today, many of them are hosted on that ICGIS portal, and you can access them there. And you can actually use those apps to do some of these same types of workflows. Now, because they're in CyberNet and JWix, that'll be, you'll be limited to devices that can connect to that environment, but many of these same applications are available there. If you need more information on how to connect to those services, if you just want to, we can contact you after this if you want to leave a note at the survey at the end.
Perfect, thank you. We also have one that says, if utilized in a CMOC, would we be able to share this with NGOs, IGOs, and HN officials?
So basically the answer to that question, so if you use this in Operations Center, you can share this with other organizations based on their access to your system. So if you, for example, wanted to integrate information from other organizations, all you need to do is provide access to the system. So if you used, for example, ArcGIS Online organizations, you could just add them as individual users. If they have internet access, they could use applications and connect to the services, and actually, yeah, they could be directly integrated with you in that environment. And I believe in many cases, that's the kind of pattern we're seeing being used to do exactly that. Now, if you have a secure system, then you have to provide people access to that secure system. That's where Portal for ArcGIS comes in. You can set up your secure system, and then you'd need them to have access in that. All you do is give them an identity in your system. So if they have a login to your network and they have a login to your system, then they can access these applications and data.
Perfect. We have another question. Can I create a civil military operations dashboard in Web App Builder?
That's a great question. Maybe Joe or Dan, one of you guys want to take that?
Yeah, I can take this one. So it's actually something that we're looking into right now. At the latest release of ArcGIS Online around July of this year, Web App Builder came out with a dashboard theme. So whereas Operations Dashboard is a desktop app where you can view the product, that dashboard in the web. If we did it with Web App Builder, it would be completely web first. So that's something that we're definitely looking into for a future release of the solution.
And one thing to add, Dan, is that Operations Dashboard is, they are also having the browser beta, right? And they're going to continue working on providing the browser functionality for dashboard views.
True.
So you'll have it in both.
Next question.
Okay, we have one that says, can I deploy this solution in a disconnected environment?
All right, Dan or Joe, want to take that?
I mean, same kind of answer as before, right? I mean, it depends on what kind of environment it is, but yeah, I mean, it'll work anywhere, depending on what type of device functionality that you have. So, I mean, if your phones aren't going to work in your disconnected environment, then you might not be able to use Survey 123 on your phone. But yeah, it'll work everywhere else. So absolutely yes.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Great answer. And as a additional kind of point to that, just want to add that this whole system can be deployed in your own network, as we were mentioning earlier with Portal for ArcGIS. So it can be deployed behind enclaves as well. And you can, in that environment, you can do all the same things that we're talking about. So it's a mixtured environment. You can be disconnected or connected. I'm going to ask an additional question that came in from the audience that I think is pretty interesting, which is from Theodore. He said, we noticed that you utilized tactical conflict survey questions, TCS, in the survey tool. How did you decide to utilize those particular questions? So maybe Joe or Dan, can one of you guys answer that?
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Ben. We had some audio
interruption. Yeah, unfortunately we had a couple of those. Okay, I'll ask it one more time. So we noticed that you utilize tactical conflict survey questions, or TCS, in the survey tool. How did you decide to utilize those particular questions?
Those are the questions that kind of came through. They basically came from the organizations that we worked with, right? So we worked with some active duty civil affairs units. I can't really say who, but working with them, they were the ones that kind of gave us the questionnaires and the questions that they wanted to see built into the system. So that's how we chose it. And using the solution, right? Using the civil affairs or the civil military operations solution, you can change it to be whatever you want it to be, and you can change whatever the answers you want to see are, right? I mean, you can use domain values and use the spreadsheets to change any answer or any response. Does that answer your question?
Hopefully it does. If you have more you want to add there, you can add that to the question box. One other point I'd like to make here too, if you have some suggestions for other things that they could consider for future versions of this, they definitely would be receptive. The team would be receptive to those suggestions. So if you have other specific ideas for other forms of questionnaires, you can definitely submit that to the team. This is a fully supported solution, so it's something that they maintain and update all the time, and look at adding new things too. All right, Laura, are there any more questions?
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, yes, there was one more. Sorry.
Laura's back on. Laura's back on now. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ben and Joe. This question actually aligns quite well with what you were just speaking to. We have someone that asked if we're planning a future release of this solution. Can you speak to that?
So I would.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. I would say that we don't have a specific timeline for future release of our solution, but we are planning on making enhancements, specifically talking about integrating the dashboard with Web App Builder and updating some symbology, and also trying to ease the deployment process by potentially making use of the solutions deployment tool, which is a way that people are now deploying from one organization to the other, some of the ArcGIS solutions.
Thank you for
and sorry, Laura, and as the ArcGIS Enterprise continues to evolve, right? I mean, then additional functionality will come up in the future that may or may not prompt us to make enhancements, right? One more thing that I just wanted to reiterate, right, is talking about disconnected use. Survey 123 is absolutely designed for offline use, right? It's just when you fill out all your surveys like we talked about, and then like we showed in the demonstration, then you would upload the answers to your survey questions whenever you were able to connect back into your system.
Okay, great.
I just want to make sure that I made that clear.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. And actually, our user from before, Theodore, has another question. He says, will this allow the user to create forms that support civil recon?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, without getting too much into the doctrine behind civil recon, yeah, I mean, if it is able to be put down on a piece of paper in a form of some type, then you can replicate it to a certain extent in Survey 123, or in GeoForms or in any of the other form factors that we have for data entry in the ArcGIS Enterprise. Yeah, the answer is yes.
Great, thanks.
Great answer.
Now, I don't see any additional questions. We can hold on.
That's probably good. You want to wrap it up?
Sure. Okay, so if no one has any other questions, we'd like to thank you for attending today. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a few survey questions when you exit the webinar, and we'd love your feedback on that so we can continue to cover topics that are of interest to you. If you need any technical support or would like more information about downloading the solution, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will help you more offline.